serious crisis on our hands. And we interrupt this session to make sure that we send out SOS across the nation, across the land, and to talk about what is truly going on behind the walls of what we call America, KKK.
Right. I'm Essence Divine, and as they saying, we had another topic that we wanted to get into, but this took immediate action. A black man was found hanging from a tree in downtown Raleigh during the Caribbean Cultural Festival. Before we go any further, we need to separate what we know, what authorities are reporting, what people are assuming, and what remains unanswered. This
Yes.
conversation is not about manufacturing a conspiracy. It is also not about surrendering or our responsibility to ask questions. For Black Americans, the image of a Black person hanging from a tree carries a historical meaning that cannot simply be separated from the circumstances.
Brother, before you continue, can we
Yes.
give a little bit more context on that as far as it happening yesterday on August the 15th, 2026? I think that that's important that we, let everybody know that this just happened yesterday in downtown Raleigh at a Caribbean festival, which is a cultural festival.
Mm-hmm. Just like Brother Ausar said, this body was found hanging from a tree yesterday, August the 15th, 2026, during the Caribbean Cultural Festival. I want to make that clear if I wasn't making it clear earlier, because they do have a cultural festival every year. So the question for us is, how do we remain vigilant without abandoning evidence? Start with what we know based on the reporting available. A Black man was found hanging from a tree in downtown Raleigh. The discovery occurred during the Caribbean the
Caribbean.
right, they do it, they say like Carib Mask
Right.
Caribbean Festival, right. Witnesses reportedly saw the man earlier that day. One person reportedly said he had been walking and talking to himself. Another festival attendee reportedly encountered him asking for water. Emergency personnel responded and attempted life-saving measures. Raleigh police have reportedly said there appeared to be no foul play. Police are reportedly investigating the death as a suicide. The medical examiner's investigation remains important to establishing the circumstances and manner of death. That is where factual foundation should begin. That the medical examiner's investigation remains important to establishing the circumstances and manner of death. So, Dr. Kim, when you first heard a Black man was found hanging from a tree in downtown Raleigh, what was your immediate reaction, and where did that reaction come from?
Well, I think because it was the time of the day, I was first of all startled because that's not what I literally rode through the Caribbean Festival to go home, and it looked like the normal scene. And I was just thinking, when I finish the event that I'm a part of, I'll come back. But honestly, I just thought, because it came off of the internet, I was thinking, I'm not on the internet anymore or social media, and I automatically, mentally said, let's verify it first, because that doesn't even sound right. It's the middle of the day. It's millions of people downtown. How could that be, And I immediately just went, and probably also because I'm gonna be honest, I'm very traumatized by the Nolan Wells case, as well as the Carmelo Anthony case, and I just probably wanted to back up just a little bit because it's overwhelming. I'm also a social justice advocate, and I understand that not many people take up arms when it comes to these issues. They may be excited to fight, day one and day two, but we can look 2 years down the road, and they had already dismissed George Floyd's death. Nobody even talks about it. So I wanted to make sure before I exert all my energy that I was making sure what I heard was legitimate. So that's where I was mentally.
Right. Brother Ausar, how about yourself?
Well, my first reaction was I really wasn't that surprised. So first thing I did was I called Linda Darton, our, lead administrator for KCSSU, and also, our, one of the executive producers of Africans United. So I called Linda, and sent her some information so she could check and make sure that the information was valid, right, and that it wasn't just people throwing things out there.
Right.
And so she did that, right, and so I said okay. So I sent it to a few people, made a few calls, right, and because I think it's important, that we spread the word. So my reaction, right, and also, I listened and I read a few things where they said that, no foul play, which is a repeat that they always do every time a black person is found hanging,
Right.
or murdered or drowning or whatever. They want to eliminate that immediately without an investigation, right? Any type of investigation. So that in itself, tends to lead us to think that, okay, they trying to cover it up before it even basically gets started. So,
Sure.
and it's very disrespectful to the African American community, the African community, the black community, that we have to continuously, go through these things. So another one of my reactions, because the reason why I wasn't surprised is because a good friend of mine had just sent to me the other day an article where 8 black people, men and women, have been found hung within the last year.
That's 12 months.
Right? And like what Dr. Kimmy just talked about with the George Floyd case. Remember how the world came together, the fight for justice, and equity, the DEI and everything like that? Right? But it didn't last long, right? Because it ain't up to the world. It's up to us
Right.
to put protection on ourselves, to stop these things from happening, because, we really should be outraged, because this is a personal attack on every black person on this planet. And basically, it's a message. When you understand that this brother was found hanging downtown Raleigh, the capital city of North Carolina, right? It's a statement, message, and symbolism,
That's right.
letting black people know that y'all are still up under our power and control, and we'll do what we want to do to y'all whenever we want to, during the middle of one of y'all cultural festivals downtown Raleigh. And that's something to think about.
Yes. They first let me those same 8 people that's been hung within the last 12 months. I want to go through the names of them also, because it came across my feed also. Trey Reed, age 21. He was found hanging in Cleveland, Mississippi. That was September 15, 2025. Tania Nicole Miller, age 27. June 18th, 2026. Cherry Park in Miami-Dade County. Juliana Nazita, age 16. A young immigrant from the Democratic Republic of Congo. That was May 8th, 2026 in Charlotte, North Carolina. Justice Kai James, age 21, found hanged outside the cafeteria building at the Job Corps Center in Albany, Georgia, June 21st, 2026. Cal Basinger, age 21, found deceased on February the 18th, 2026, hanging from a tree in a wooded area in Fair Oaks Park in Marietta, Georgia. Torrance Medley, age 39, found deceased on the morning of November 13th, 2025, hanging from a tree at Brookfield Hills Golf Course on Interstate 94 in Moreland Road in Brookfield, Wisconsin, all over the nation, all ages. Jared J. Jackson, age 28, Illinois resident, who traveled to Michigan to attend the Electric Forest Festival, and he was found on June 30th, 2026, hanging from a tree in a nearby wooded area. Tasea Fortune, aged 29, a mother of 4, she was found hanging from a tree behind an abandoned house on August 3rd, 2026.
That's ridiculous.
In Jackson, Mississippi. So for Black Americans, hanging from a tree isn't historically neutral imagery. It invokes America's history of racial terror and lynching. According to the Equal Justice Initiative, thousands of documented racial terror lynchings occurred in the United States during the period following Reconstruction, from 1865 to 1877 and into the 20th century. Those acts weren't simply murders, they were messages. They were intended to terrorize entire Black communities, as Brother Ausar was just alluding towards. So, Brother Ausar, can something trigger legitimate historical trauma even when the present day event ultimately has a completely different explanation?
When it has a completely different explanation.
And like, for instance, when they say was found hanging from a tree, that's different from they was hung from a tree.
Right. Right. Well, yes. I mean, you definitely got to watch the language, right, and everything lead up to, any type of true investigation, because as we can see, by everything you just read, and most of those happen in southern states. Right, most of them, but a couple of them happened. One in Wisconsin, one in Illinois, but mostly southern states. So, with the historical background, that the southern states has and this country has, right, we have reason to, not only be concerned, but really do some serious organizing and really do some serious looking at our own responses to these things and what we need to be doing
Absolutely.
as a people to protect ourselves and protect our communities, right? Because there's no protection on us whatsoever, right? So I think that, we have to be wise, because we cannot continue to lose our innocent brothers and sisters, right, to a corrupt government and to a corrupt society that basically this whole country is based off of what? Racism, systemic and institutional racism, right? So, I just think that, I always find it interesting, the narrative that's created, because like when you were speaking on how, they got all of this interaction with this brother, walking around. They say he was asking for water, which nothing is wrong with asking for water when it's 95 degrees outside. That's a natural thing at a festival. But for them to even to interject that in detail in the article, and then they also said that the brother was what? Talking to himself. To do what? Paint a picture that the brother is suffering from what? Some type of mental illness. So they trying to, set a stage to try to say that, if he did kill himself, it was because he had mental health illnesses. Well, if y'all know all of this about him walking around, somebody not only saw something, but somebody did something, right? And it's a message to all Black people, and it's to instill fear. That's why we have to be fearless. Because see, this isn't just history. This is taking place today, right? So we're not progressing, we're regressing in the treatment of Black people. And it hasn't gotten any better, throughout the years, and it's getting worse. Ever since George Floyd, it has gotten worse, right? So, it's going to be some interesting, conversations that we have to have, here in Raleigh, with the political figures, the city, and the county, because they should be very concerned, and I can't wait to hear their response. I know one of the responses was no foul play from the police, which is very interesting. So we're going to take our time and we're going to organize, and and those of us who advocate for justice, like Dr. Kim and yourself, we're going to make sure that we do things in a way where not only we get answers, but more importantly, what we do to put protection on our children, our women, our young men, right, in our communities. So we don't have to suffer not only, from the system targeting us for mass incarceration, but also murdering us.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, again, based off of the the current climate that has always been the current climate, we understand that we are a hated people, and we cannot underestimate America. We cannot overstate America's position on us. And so when we hear lynching, it is our job to automatically pause, put on brakes, ask for independent investigation. Those are the things that we are entitled to after being here 500 years and under direct oppression up until this day. So when, now that it has truly come out that that was the state of the matter, then it is our responsibility, like Brother Ausar said. Who else is going to make sure that there's a fair and impartial investigation? And I believe Raleigh Police Department should have not used words such as no foul play, because you didn't even give it 24 hours before you start trying to sum up a matter that we know have racial concepts held, deeply tied to the Black African American community. But that says a lot about even how they still see the Black community or Black bodies, that they're not worthy of being investigated to that degree, nor do they believe our pain, because or they have chosen not to engage white supremacy. That is basic, because even if it was, and if it was directly a matter of white supremacy, then why would you be so quick on a concept only used by white supremacy? Like lynchings. One thing is to be suicidal and hang oneself, but lynchings say that this is a part of an American pastime. No one else uses lynchings like America does. And only one population of people are known for lynching. So even if you ruled out suicide, you gave no thought to even investigating to see if it was anything else. And I say this because specifically African American males, though not across the board, very rare do we find that they commit suicide, so to speak. And so when you say that in comparison in a climate that we're dealing with today, like you said, 8 people within 1 year, and we're in the deep South, before the day is out, you've already ruled it as not having any foul play. Tells us that you would not have been ready to address it even if it were foul play. And that is a problem with the investigation from the beginning. And how we look at Black lives, how we look at Black pain, how we look at how Black people should be treated. And we don't have the mechanisms within we just don't have it within your current systems to do that. And we have to be honest. For them to even be investigating from the first place should tell us that they're not fit to do any investigations for Black deaths. And whoever this gentleman is, while unfortunate, this is not the first time. So if we go back to January the 17th, Daryl Tyree Williams was murdered on Rock Quarry Road, and he was electro-lynched because they used a taser, and they kept repeating it till he died. So that's an open lynching with 5 videotapes available to us. Immediately, those were on display. His death was ruled a homicide. That is what is on his death certificate. And the 5 cops still didn't go to jail. So what are we looking for? Because if that didn't get us, if that lynching, because lynchings is not just hanging from a tree. If we're reminded, Emmett Till was lynched, but he was thrown into the Tallahassee River somewhere along the way. Again, every hanging is, a lynching is not just hanging from a tree. So when that happens, why are we not outraged on every form of lynching possible by our police, anybody? And that was by RPD.
Right.
Hey, brother, if I may, right, I would just like to say because, okay, first is a denial that there could have been possibly, and not only possibly, but there's a strong case that foul play was involved. Now the city, the county, the state, the United States, they don't want to look bad. So they don't want to make it seem like it was something that was racially
Motivate.
motivated,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they have multiple reasons of why they want to, for one, try to, they say they want to keep the racial tension down, but really they don't. They want to really escalate it, right? And then they want us to have evidence and everything. So you got the city, the county. They don't want it to be something like a lynching where a black man was hung, because then they got to really investigate. They don't want to investigate anyway because they don't think that our lives really matter to that point, right? So what we had to do as a people is, we got to really look at this thing seriously and understand the way this country operates. And we cannot be in denial ourselves
That's right.
to the reality of what is taking place in 2026. Same thing that was taking place in 1826. It's no different,
So true.
right? We just got what we consider to be more freedom. But how much freedom do we really have when every black person on this planet life is at risk
That's right.
because of racists, white supremacists, who want to continue to instill fear in black people in the black community, and it works, right? And that's why I say we have to be fearless, right? And we have to really organize and all, we have to look at our young brothers and sisters who are being misled, and we got to try to work with them so we can have the right consciousness,
That's true.
so that we would know that we don't need to be fighting against each other. We have a bigger fight that we have to fight against. And it's not just a physical fight. It's a spiritual fight. It's a mental fight.
That's
it's
right.
a psychological fight. It's warfare being waged against us on every front, right? And for our black professionals out there, because they are going to try to, say there was no foul play and all that. Ain't nobody said there was no foul play. Ain't nobody accused anybody of doing anything, right? But we don't want narratives that are created to make it seem like this man had mental health issues and was homeless or something like that and begging for water, trying to paint a picture in the minds of the people.
And from my understanding, like no foul play could be ruled in or out until the ME does it, right?
I'm sorry.
The
Repeat that,
the
brother.
ME, the medical examiner, have to examine the body first before they can determine if it was foul play or not.
You would think so. You would think that the other professionals will have their say before. And, let me say this. When the police officer kills someone, they are given 5 days to release their report. So most of the times you'll get a 5-day report. It's called to explain their investigation. They did not give this 12 hours to before they were saying this was, this was no foul play. Other professionals have not even seen the lights of this body or any of those things. And I just think they should have waited. And let me say this. When the government wants to prolong or hold at bay, they delay any information. I watched in Elizabeth City, there was a murder by the police department. I'm trying to remember this young man's name.
Andrew Brown.
Yes, and thank you. And I remember the judicial system there refusing to release any information to the family or to the public, and people marched, prayed, fought to get things released. And they did this as a form of breakdown, of injustice. So either they're extreme in holding off evidence so no one sees anything and hope that you go away, or just walk away with pain or unanswered questions, or they shut you down on day one and then say, well, we're not investigating any further because this is what we came up with. Not given really a real fair, adequate amount of time to deal with things or to help the community along. This is a huge concern. And that is why, at some point, Black America is going to have to wake up because everybody black, kin folks is not, skin folks, clan folks, that saying is true. Just because you have black people in power does not mean you're going to get adequate justice. And I think sometimes they try to make us equate a black face means a kind face. It does not. And we have to beware and we have to determine, do we have the right people with the right heart and the right motive when it comes to justice? Because some people are just not there.
Yeah.
I got a question for both of y'all.
Sure.
What was the young man's name yesterday, and how old was he?
Yesterday, we don't even know any of that yet.
Why?
I don't.
Well, they're saying that he was 68 years old. That's all I have so far. I don't have a name.
Right. Well, I'm gonna be honest. Right. They haven't released any of that information. Right. And it's a reason why they haven't released the name, because if they're saying that's not foul play and they got a body, right, they're gonna not only determine, who that person is, but they would release that information, but they're not releasing the information. Right. So you gotta really pay attention, to everything that's going on. Right. Most people, when something happens, like Nolan Wells or whatever, they come forth with the name of the victim, right? So this person was a victim yesterday. If they could say that this victim was seen doing this, and who are these people that were seeing this victim doing all of these things? Who were the last people, just like Nolan Wells' case, who were the last people to see this person? It happened right downtown. And with technology these days, that they can go back and look on them streets and find out everything basically that took place and what happened.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely correct. So let me ask Dr. Kim, what evidence will we need before we could call this lynching a lynching or a homicide?
Well, I think you're going to need quite a few things. You're going to need expert persons to come in and do their own autopsy. That's the first thing, because any kind of bruising, trying to get him up on a tree is not easy. It's not even easy for him to put himself on the tree. That form of suicide can be very. Was there a chair under? What is it? How did he mount himself on there? And then fingerprints. You have to look at the impression, if there were any impressions on other parts of his body that could have come from someone holding him or trying to grab him, of any signs of a fight or a struggle with him and other people. They're going to look under his nails. Those are some of the evidence-based things that they'll be looking for. Was anybody else involved in this manner? And where do we have any video footage in an area that is downtown, highly populated with restaurants, from the festival, anywhere for that matter, because that's a booming business spot and everybody is supposed to have adequate security or footage that would have seen, hopefully, something going down. So there are multiple ways that they can. First of all, they have to treat it as both. When they do the investigation, they have to look at both the suicide method, but what goes into a suicide versus a homicide. Looking at fingerprints, looking at impact from others, and does the scene show that there was more than one person at the scene?
And if it was a suicide, when did he? The rope had to be purchased or.
They said
or
an
was it
extension
hanging?
cord. They're saying an extension cord. Now, I don't know who's walking around Raleigh with extension cords looking for a good tree to hang themselves, but I mean,
And
I'm
you're
not
the
the
first.
investigation.
Yeah.
He'll be the first. He might need to get that award of the first black man walking around Raleigh with an extension cord in his hand. And did when he was asking for water, did they see him with the extension
Extension cord,
cord?
right.
Let's go back and look at it. And whether he just find, I'm almost for certain downtown Raleigh does not have extension cords outside ready and available to hang grown men that can hold that kind of weight. So those are some of the things I would probably look at.
Yes, yes. But brother, sir, like add anything?
Yes. First, I want to ask, both of y'all, if y'all know of any of those 8 people that were found hanging within the last year, if anybody was ever charged with a crime in those cases.
I think where it's reading that they ruled them all
Legitimate suicides.
right. And this even the brother down the street, where was it, Henderson or
Right,
Oxford
Henderson.
or somewhere?
Henderson.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought him up
Go ahead.
because that just happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
The brother from Chicago, the truck driver, now
Yeah.
they have ruled that as suicide.
Yes.
Right. So it's like this with me. Right. I don't have to have no evidence. Right. Because this is what they're counting on. They're counting on the lack of evidence. Just because you don't have no evidence does not mean a crime wasn't committed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then think about what the police department, and we all know what institutional and systemic racism exists within the legal framework, within the legal system, right? Mm-hmm. So they could do what they want to do with their evidence. They could lose evidence. They don't have to present evidence. I'm speaking firsthand knowledge of things that happened to me when I went to court, when I went to trial in the federal system. So I know what they will do with evidence, right? They'll make up evidence or they'll delete evidence, right? And so they want to keep everything hush-hush because they don't want, first of all, they don't want to investigate. Just think about if it was a European that was found hanging downtown Raleigh. The outrage, right? Think of it if it was an Asian or Hispanic, right? But because it was black, hey, we're used to seeing black people hanging themselves. They've been hanging themselves since what? Slavery days. Find a good old oak tree, and we're gonna string ourselves up. We know better than that.
Right.
You just read 8 cases where they ruled them suicide. That's not what we do.
Right. And we thrive.
Right.
We thrive in life because we've always had to thrive in life. So to have to thrive from a rope would be asinine from us. That's not who we really are. And so at the end of the day, we are going to have to make some real hard decisions about who we allow to investigate our cases.
Right.
At the end, we can win this battle in Raleigh for this young man or we don't. At the end of the day, we have to go back to our real issue. And the real issue is, do we even allow them to hold the bodies of our beloved? Are they worthy? Because if we already have 8 cases in 1 year that have been ruled suicide and not homicide, then we already know what we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And if you can look at, and I go back to Darrell Williams because there was a legit, immediately they released the video footage. And they showed us we killed them. And they put it on the death certificate. And that still didn't change our approach to how investigations are done. Investigations are done, and how they're done is by how that group of people see us. The question is, we know, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to still allow them to be the conductors of the investigations for black bodies? And we have thousands, if not millions of children every year that go to school for criminal justice, and they go to get degrees in such disciplines. But when they come out, who will they be loyal to? Mm. And so, we have to go much deeper and address, you're preparing our children to come out and serve white supremacy.
Right.
Because they don't support when Darrell Williams was killed, um, Kyron Hinton was beat. All of them, all the black chief of police, they protected. They protected white supremacy, and so they are loyal to white supremacy. They are not loyal, and I'm not saying that it. In any case, people, if nature says that pressure bursts pipes, so that could happen. But it's very rare, and it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we do a thorough and comprehensible investigation before we rule anything out.
So when you have like Mr. Williams, homicide on the paper, it must be a difference in homicide and murder or something.
They say it
what's
is.
What's the justification that was given about something of that?
Well, I'm sure they try to say that homicide and murder is different because murder sounds like it's more intentional versus someone dying. When you were unalive, they can call that homicide regardless. But why the death? And so they won't rule it a murder, or they won't rule it in a manner that says that someone else was responsible for his death. He died, yes, but they're saying basically that he caused his own death.
Yeah.
And that's still a form of, homicide, because it wouldn't be suicide. He didn't shock himself to death.
Right.
But they won't put the blame on who pulled out their taser guns and so, hi Raleigh, city of Raleigh. The reason why I'm talking so much about Darrell Williams is because we're actually about to request the reopening of that case. Even though he was paid, that's very nice, but that doesn't solve the problem because we're back here again. And we will be back here many more times if we don't go to the root cause of these issues.
Yeah. And you mentioned Drew. I knew Drew personally. I'm sorry, Andrew Brown.
Okay.
I knew him personally, and from my understanding, which I wasn't there at that time, but from my understanding, he was shot in the back by a few sheriffs or whatever.
Yes.
Trying to flee a scene. So should we simply accept the initial police explanations, or like Brother Ausar was just alluding to, just a few ago? Should it be some other way that we can start doing these type of autopsies or something for ourselves, or get find out? Could we?
Yes.
Well, I feel like this, right? Emphatically, no. I feel like our concern should be on, stopping this from happening to black people. I don't think our concern should be, how we investigate the murder of a black person. I think we should put a stop to it, right? And the only way we're going to be able to put a stop to it is we have to gain power in all areas of life, right, that impact us from a cultural perspective, right? Raise our consciousness. Because, see, we can't see what's going on because we're unconscious because of what has happened to us over the last, we're 500 years, but even more than that, when they start invading Africa. That's why we always talk about know thyself, right? Because when you know thyself, right, it gives you a consciousness and a better understanding where you're not taken off guard when these types of things are happening. Because through your studying and understanding history and understanding the nature of our enemies, you understand that it has to take some really severe measures for things to change for us to stop it. Because we're not going to stop it by playing kumbaya with them and singing with them, or trying to get, private investigators like what they're doing in the Nolan Wells case. When we have to do things like that, it's too late, right? Because now we're in a reaction mode. That's why we do the things that we do at KCSSU as far as educating the children, right? And on this show, the community, so that we'll understand things better to be able to stop them from hanging us and drowning us and lynching us in all the manners that they lynch us. Because it's not just where we're lynched to the point where we're dead physically. It also happens mentally and spiritually and emotionally, right? And I think that we need to, look at how they try to destroy us in every way possible. So when we start dealing with the reality of what's going on, our reality, see, the reality of the world is always shaped through the perception of who's looking at the world in our mind. And if we don't have a high level of consciousness, if we're operating on a low vibrational frequency, we're not going to understand the things that are taking place. We're just going to think that it's bad and hope that it don't happen to us. But we're not going to be able to plan and organize and strategize to keep it from happening to us. And the only way we're going to be able to stop it is for us to acquire power where we can put protection on ourselves and our people, just like any other group of people does. But when we do it, it's a problem. And one of our main problems is the black people who go that are anti-black and anti-African, which we know is a mental health, condition that a lot of our brothers and sisters suffer from. But we need our brothers and sisters who are impeding our progress to step out the way, or we're going to have to get them out the way, right? Because we know that the police chief here in Raleigh, the third straight police chief that's African-American, right? The sheriff is an African-American. County commissioner, Wake County school superintendent, all of these are black people, right? City council members, men and women. So let's see what they have to what they have to say about the events that took place downtown Raleigh yesterday. And I guarantee you, the first thing they're going to say is hollering is about they need evidence. Well, what do you think happened? What do you actually think happened to that young brother? And what do you think happened to the other 8 people that had been found hanging in trees within the last year? Do you honestly believe that these things are happening on their own, but they want to make it where it seems like it's normal because it's a black person? And that's where, like I stated before, we have to raise our consciousness and we have to give the right response.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Kim, you want to?
Well, I think that's the way you gain power.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the ways that you gain power, is that you take the reins from out of the oppressor's hands. If you can start building your own institutions, you can start building your own investigative teams. If you can start building your own, know thyself and build your own. Because once you know better, you do better. And what you don't do is side with the oppressor to ask and have any of the questions answered by the oppressor. And that is perfectly okay. I know someone would probably say, well, are you disconnecting yourself from the whole? Yes, if that means our survival. We never know what you're doing. So then we just play the safer role where we just don't engage altogether. So much focus have been put on inclusion and on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and be included. Now, why would I want to be included with the oppressor?
Right.
Why would I be willing to be included with someone who we know that is unjust in his heart, and you almost have to beat him to make him respect you as a human? So, that is our way of stripping one of power. And I think power is incremental. So the more we build, what we would like to see is more of black investigators break off from the system and begin to do independent studies, or and not gain the bodies of these people, of our people, after the white institutions have done theirs. We should be front and center at the same time.
Right.
A lot of times, even with Nolan Wells, things were missing. They turned the body over without giving all the body parts, which means you have an inconclusive, a partial investigation from the very beginning for the second person. We should be front and center. Right. Yes, there should be 2 persons at the same time. The institution, when they call 911, there better be a black expert somewhere on the ambulance coming down the street. Don't touch the body until we get there. That is how we're going to, and sad to say, we live in 2 worlds. We live in 2 different cities, in the same city, but 2 cities. We live in this country, but it's 2 different countries, 2 different justices. And so we should show up at the same time, not acting like we won.
That's something you said right there. we should be like, give me my body first, the body of my family. Let me run my own test and all before you even get to them. Because you talking about missing, not just missing evidence. You said missing um,
Body
body
parts
parts.
with no explanation as to when
Yeah.
they're going to turn it over.
Yeah,
If we not front and center, we already behind the cue ball.
Yeah.
I just got a text from someone in the community saying they about to start a riot. The young people are mad.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
No, we need to be made. That's why I keep talking about our response. And that's why, I had, brought up, before about, the young brothers and sisters in the community and how we go at each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We think we each other enemies, but we're not each other enemies. We have an open, natural enemy that has showed us who they were for thousands of
It's
years.
true.
And they're still showing us. So the young people should be mad. And the old people should be upset too, right? Now, we have to, like I stated before, raise our consciousness. Because it's one thing to be mad, but be mad with a consciousness so you know how to respond and what to do. That's why we educate on the knowledge of self, on unity, understanding. Like I was saying, I can't wait till we start working with the children again in September in our rites of passage so we can talk to them about the buddy system. Make sure you're always with friends and things of that nature. This is just the reality of what's going on in the world, on how we have to protect ourselves. But more than anything, we have to look at the people who we are protecting ourselves from.
yes.
And why we have to protect ourselves from, right? We can't act like white supremacy don't exist, racism don't exist, that the Ku Klux Klan don't exist, right? That they're not trying to intimidate black people just for the sport of it, right? While making money off of us while doing it, while locking us up, right? By criminalizing us, that's the first thing they always want to do. Before they lock us up or murder us, is criminalize us. The same way they tried to criminalize those elementary age children from the community, Raleigh Millbank.
That's true.
Right? It's always an attack on the black man, the black woman, and the black child. It's an attack on our psychic, right? But see, we are going to remain vigilant in our quest for liberation and power, right? And this is when we have to get with the young people who are mad so we can properly educate them, right?
That's right.
So we can make the right moves in dealing with the enemy, because now you see, but it shouldn't take something like that to happen for you to see what's going on, right? But we get caught up in everything else. We get caught up in all kinds of frivolous things that distract us, because that's the way the world is set up. So that's why we have to get these young brothers and sisters who are acting out and ask them to look here. Please open up your ears, your eyes, and listen, right? Because the information we're going to be spreading with you is going to help us out. And the information that y'all share with us, because of the age and era that y'all are growing up in, y'all can educate us on the way y'all looking at things, and then we can work together, the youth and the elders, so we can plan together to reach our babies, to reach our mothers, to reach our fathers, to let them see the systemic plans to keep the black man and the black woman separated, so there's no protection in the home.
That's right.
These things aren't normal. So, the young brothers and sisters out there who mad, they should be mad. If a white person was found hanging, you think the youth wouldn't be mad at the white youth? And the same with Asian.
They're going to have tiki torches.
Indeed.
They're going to have...
Right. So, but what we have to do is we have to organize. We have to talk with our young brothers and sisters. And then let's not riot, but let's strategize, right? And let's put something together where we're going to be able to uplift our communities while challenging a corrupt system, right? And putting pressure on the police department to stop hyper policing our areas and find out what happened to this young brother, right? We already know the police department killed the brother you keep talking about, and I'm glad you keep talking about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because they got away with murder.
They got away with murder.
And they thought that they could
That's
just
right.
pay this family off and everything was going to go
No,
away. No.
no,
That was 2023, wasn't it?
That is
January.
right. January 17th.
January 17th. I never forget it.
Me too.
Right there, right down the street from where I live.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Right down the street from What happened downtown yesterday, right down the street from where I live,
Right.
right? These things are hitting us not close to home, but right here at home. And I always say this.
That's right.
Wherever it takes place on this planet, if it's a black person, it impacts all of us.
It does.
Yeah.
It impacts all of us.
Absolutely. And let me just say this too. Am I anti-riot? Then if I'm gonna be anti-riot for black folks not to get out in the streets, I'm gonna be anti-riot for the police department and all these other folks not to riot.
Right.
And no one questions why they go out and kill everybody in a whole nother country and all of a sudden, oh, we're going over there for democracy. But when you kill everybody, that's not democratic because you kill people that you didn't even give a process for them to. So, we're going to be democratic or we're not. Is none. And I'll even go back as far as to say, in response to this young lady who just chimed in, when we talk about riots, we can go back to the Watts riots.
Yes.
And I never forget that many people, the history books tell us that LBJ, which is Lyndon Baines Johnson, the president, reached out to Dr. Martin Luther King at the time and asked him to go and please disperse this riot, shut it down. It had been going on for a while. And where he thought Mr. Noble, nonviolent man, was just going to go down there and wave a magic wand, his response was totally different to what he expected. He said riots are the language of the unheard.
That's right. That's right.
Now, I know everybody don't like riots, and Lord, does it, the damages and all this stuff, but no. We're not talking about financial ruin. We're talking about all the other ruins that that have not been discussed, that becomes a chaotic hurricane in many cases that bring this on. And then you want us to act civilized, because that's exactly what tends to happen is then you start looking at riots as something that is, they're just looters and they're just rioting without a cause.
Criminalizing them.
Now they criminalize it without actually addressing the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Martin Luther King, I'm going to remind you, American society, that he said riots is the language of the unheard. And then after he said that, he wanted to, he proposed. He proposed to the United States of America ways that they could alleviate the poverty. And they told him they're not going to vote for that. They're not going to vote for that. So they wanted him to quiet the people, but they didn't want to give the people any resolve either economically. And he had it all strategized out. It wasn't until Martin Luther King got murdered, till all of a sudden they immediately put the Fair Housing Act. Many other acts came into play. Some of these bills that you hear, the HUD Act and the Fair Housing Act and all these other acts that came into play as a result of his death. So and of course, when Dr. Martin Luther King was murdered, there were plenty of riots. It was more than just one riot. So, of course, sometimes they don't understand unless there's damages. Mm-hmm. Because we have always suffered the damages. It may not have been in the form of a riot, but black bodies, black minds, black communities, black have always been subject to damage. And they don't care if we ever heal. They just want someone to manage the damage.
Yeah. I personally don't mind the riot, but organizing.
Well, I mean, it's levels of organization.
Yeah.
If it takes war on the ground to get everybody to line up, yes. But then, yes, we have to move on to organization, and then we have to move on to maintaining, because you could kill a black person, George Floyd. You get people that organize, and then it's dispersed. So we have to maintain saying that we can't stop here.
Yes,
The Montgomery bus boycott, we came off the bus and started creating fleets to take each other to work and to school. And as soon as they let us back on the front of the bus, we no longer wanted to do fleet.
We got back on the bus.
We won't organize no more.
Right.
We let them disorganize us.
Right. Well, we still wanted what they had. We wasn't comfortable with saying, okay, maybe we should now do our own fleets. we went back into not having our own businesses when we just had our own businesses. We value being with them more than being with us.
It's still like that.
And it's still that way.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why it's such a great divide when we go to look for black people who went to their colleges and got their degrees and their expertise, and then they inject them right back into that system instead of saying, well, let me come out, separate, and because they've made integration more important than your own identity.
Right. And that's kind of symbolic too when they give you a few bucks after after the homicide.
I think that's a funny word, integrate. If you really think about what does it really mean?
Foolishness. Another word, AKA foolishness.
To integrate with another people. What are you really saying when you're talking about integrating and assimilating? Right? You're just talking about submitting. That's all it is.
You're almost talking about survival. Because if you don't, then, like you said, Brother Ausar, what does it mean? Look at what Trump has done in the last, I guess, how many years, months, whatever. He have threatened that if you even look like you gonna buck how we define integration. You can be here, but we still have full control. And if you even mention any of these things of injustice, we strip you of your, so you can be a part of, you can be right in amongst us, and we will still strip you of who you are, your power. You still can't say anything.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
I just think that integration and assimilation is really just, basically bending to the will of others, of what they consider to be the dominant society. And like Dr. Malana Karenga, like he teaches in Kawita philosophy that, as long as, the Europeans, the dominant society, continue to monopolize our minds, it'll be impossible for us to achieve liberation, because like he say, if you can't conceive it, you can't achieve it. So I think it's important, like Dr. Kim was saying, how we want to be with the Europeans because they have a monopoly on our minds.
It's true.
That's why the knowledge of self is dealing with what? What's the first thing we teach, brother?
Control your
thoughts.
Yeah.
And the second one is control your action. Right, so the thought has to be an African-centered thought that's based off of truth, justice, and righteousness.
It's true.
Balance. That's quite a foundation to deal with.
It's true.
Right? And you have to be able to weigh things within your mind. Right? So they keep talking about, okay, where's the evidence? We weigh the evidence based off of what? Historical accounts and what they are reporting, what was found. We know that black people just don't go around doing these type of things. So, of course, we're going to be very skeptical.
That is correct.
Right. So I think that it's important for us to understand, right, that, our teachings, right, and understanding the knowledge of self, right, what that does is it eradicates our oppressors of being able to monopolize our mind and our thoughts, right? Remember what Steve Biko said, who was brutally murdered in South Africa, the revolutionists. He said what? The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed.
Yes.
Right? So like him and Dr. Malana Karenga said, the first thing we have to do is what? Free and liberate our minds. So we can understand who our open enemies are.
That's right.
And the plans and the tricks that they use to continue to oppress us.
Right.
And the number one tool they use is our own mind.
It's true. That's good. That's good, Brother Ausar. You can say that for the people in the back, because once you understand who you are and take control over your mind, you don't talk yourself into lying to yourself. And that's the problem, is that so many of us, anytime that someone can cut off your food, then they control your mind. They said, basically, and I can't quote it, but anybody who basically controls whether you eat or not, basically controls your mind. That in itself is a war. That is a crime against humanity. We're in a country that threatened 42 million people's livelihood of food and food stamps because they can't get a budget for the country. But you can have an endless war and don't even have to look and ask if anybody gonna eat because you could care less. It's about what you want to do, and you just wedge it as possible. You are not ran by a country. You are ran by a tyrant, and the whole country is nothing but a bunch of tyrants, baby tyrants. So again, what are we really under? We have to question ourselves: are we under suppression, or are we under a real country? Now, they may be under their country, but we certainly are not under their country. And black people have to come to a place where they understand. Just because they let you sit at the table don't mean they're going to serve you good food.
Right.
We
I
so
like that, Dr.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
so just because they let you at the table, you so happy to be at the table, you don't care what they serving you. And most of it, I say, is bologna sandwich. Y'all understand? I can't say the bad words no more. But they still serving out bologna sandwiches when they should be serving out steak. I think Brother Escents feel me on that one. And again, when we have our own intellect, we
That's
have
right.
our own intelligence. Why would we use our intellect and our intelligence? Again, I have a criminal justice degree come out of Wake Tech, also Campbell University. But those same books are in the HBCUs for their criminal justice. So how could you ever want a real criminal justice system when you're using the oppressor's methods on criminal justice? There is nothing in the books that talk about the effects of white supremacy on Black America and how that affects criminal justice. Can't even find it.
Right. I think that the place to look for that is Derek Bell in critical race theory. And of course,
How dare you, Brother Ausar?
they have outlawed
Yay!
his work,
Come on.
right? Where he's talking about how systemic racism is embedded into the very fabric of the United States, not only their history, but their whole culture
Yes.
is based off of. So when we're talking about criminal justice and we're talking about critical race theory and Derek Bell, right? In their eyes, criminal justice is punishing black people, oppressing black people, suppressing, exploiting, and making laws, right? Like the and I'm gonna go with one recently, the crack the cocaine law, the 100-to-1
Yes.
law, where crack cocaine you got 100 times, your sentence was 100 times worse than it was if you had like 100 grams or 1 gram. Right. So I think that when we talk about criminal justice, justice for who? It's injustice for black people.
It's true.
Right. There's never been justice for us, and we can go all the way back to we can go back before the original Constitution. We can go back as far as we want to go, as far as when our first experiences, with the Europeans when they invaded Africa. So when we're talking about criminal justice, it really doesn't apply to us, right? It applies to what? Europeans. They demand justice because they feel they had that right, because they feel like this is what? Their country. And this always takes me back to what, me and Dr. Kim always discuss. Are we really considered citizens here in the United States?
Sure.
Are we full citizens? And if we say yes, we are, and then we are out of our minds.
That's right. That is correct.
Like Dr. Amos Wilson said, he said that we had to be backwards in our minds to let things go on the way that they're going on, not only in this country, but in this world.
It's true. But I mean, the great scholars, Henry Clark and Amos and so many others paved the way. We don't have to relive experiences. We have teachers who've already paved the way for us. And I think, like you said, Brother Ausar, I think most of our people are in denial. So once you're in denial, you basically just start assimilating and becoming a joke to society. And I know it's hard to fight, but guess what? You have truth. And actually, the truth sets you free, but it also sets everybody else free. So it sets your oppressor free because he is just, the reason why he's a sociopath is because nobody ever disciplined his thoughts. And while that may not be our job in so many ways, as the original people who started civilization, it is our job to hold up what truth is, so that every human can live peaceably amongst all men. they know not to cross certain lines. They understand boundaries. When you get to the shore and you see other people, you don't say you discover. You say you are a visitor. These things, we have to help society understand who they are so we don't even have to engage in such foolishness. Because once we stop telling the truth, we automatically pass the baton over to sociopaths. And we can't do that either. Being nice to sociopaths don't make them better.
That's right.
You know, and we understood that through, some of us understood that through quote unquote enslavement. Some folks felt like if they fed master a bigger piece of cornbread, he was going to be nice, or maybe not rape their children, or not sell them off down the street, you know, goofy stuff. And I'm sure they did. I have ancestors that literally have named their children after slave owners, probably in order to pacify them in some kind of way. Because who would do that?
George Washington Carver.
See? You see what I'm saying? Yeah. We've been known to give our children slave names of those who we not probably felt like they were better, but because they had power. And that was our bargaining chip. So if I say my child's name is after you, you won't sell my child down the river. We did all kinds of psychological things to survive. And now we can no longer do that. I know, and this is not far off from this topic of Raleigh's lynchings. But look at the black people who are in position. What are they doing to appease white supremacy, and we don't get the justice that we need? That, again, is you didn't end slavery because your child's name is now George Washington Carver. And neither does Rico Boyce. The only thing he could get is a higher position if he just wards us off. And that has been the status quo in Raleigh, is that you could get a high. When Ike L. Dinkins was killed by D.C. Twitty, shortly after on Bragg Street, D.C. Twitty got an award.
Right, of course.
He got an award. So
What's DC 20?
Twitty, that was the officer that killed the brother
on Bragg Street.
2016?
February 29th, 2016.
Okay.
So he killed him behind, near the corner store, but behind the home on Bragg Street, on the corner of Bragg and something. At the end of the day, because they were able to manage and hoard us off, he was given a promotion. Right. So yes. And anytime that you are able to hoard off the rest of the community, you get a promotion. I have seen it time and time again. If you beat the community and keep Raleigh intact, and I mean white supremacy, not the city of Raleigh is white supremacy. That's what the city of Raleigh means and represent. And if you could keep the people at bay, you could get a promotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You know, brother and sister, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, wow. A brother was found hanging in Raleigh, North Carolina yesterday. And I mean, with news like that, you know, last night, when I just found out last night and happened, I said to myself, I couldn't believe nobody had called me to say anything about it, right? First thing I did when I found out, I started calling people, texting people the information, stuff like this, because we can't let this thing become to the point where it's normal and it don't affect us, and that's just the way it is, and they're going to always hang black people. No.
Right.
We got to get serious about this thing, and we have to stop talking.
Absolutely.
More than anything.
That's right.
And we have to organize and strategize and hold the people accountable. And I love what Dr. Kim had stated earlier about our own institutions and our own, people dealing with the investigation and all. And we got to have institutions for that.
That's right.
So it can be honest.
Right.
She's right on that account.
Yep.
But anytime that we're going into their system and getting our private investigators from somebody from their pool, of course they gonna muddy the waters.
They're gonna muddy the waters.
Look what happened with the Nolan Wells case.
That's right.
And the body that was sent to DC.
Yes.
And it was missing the throat, right, and other parts, of the body, and they are allowed to get away with this because it's systemic racism in the South. Then now, they say that the lawyer that the boys in the Nolan Wells case, his so-called friends,
Yes,
have hired one of Donald Trump's
that is correct.
lawyers.
That is correct, and I
That's
heard.
symbolic and a message
Oh yes, sir.
to white America that they're going to stick together and do everything in their power to put protection to make sure that them white boys aren't held accountable if they did commit a crime.
No,
Ain't no,
brother Ausar, they are now working together to file defamation lawsuits against anybody who speaks up against them.
that's
publicly.
a tactic. That's
That's
a tactic.
that's listen, and you telling me we want to be a part of that system? We have no choice but to come out. And anytime you say the word systematic,
Right.
you already said that it's corrupt.
Right.
So then why would you? Oh,
Right.
it's systematic corruption.
Yeah.
Okay, it's systematic racism.
Right.
So if it's that, why would you get on that boat?
Right. Right.
Why would anybody get on the boat of systematic racism and ride out?
Right. And they know it exists.
And they know it
Yeah,
exists.
they promote it. And really, to be honest, you know, it's used to really they want us angry and out of our minds.
That is
things like
correct.
that, right?
Yeah.
They love it.
And even though, we may get passionate, I really like the way we're conducting, this discussion and conversation because we have to have cool heads when we're dealing with an enemy that's very not only strategic, because you got to understand these things are happening more often than not now.
That's right.
Right? Because this summer isn't over, and it's been about 5 hangings this summer already, what you just read.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a message that they trying to send to us. It's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. So we have to keep our eyes open, and we have to be vigilant, right, and diligent in making sure we do the things that we need to do to protect our children, our families, and make sure that, these things don't continue to happen. Because I don't want to talk about us getting justice because we've never received justice here in the United States or anywhere. We don't even know what justice really looks like, right? So what we want to do is stop it from happening.
Well, and then too, why would we expect to get justice from a system that we already call systematic racism?
Right.
I mean, it
That's
sounds
right,
like
that's
an
right.
oxymoron
It
to
does,
me.
right.
Why would we even expect? And why are we so afraid to pull out from a system that is systematically racist?
That's a great question.
Great question, Dr.
Why are we so afraid to pull out
Great
of the
question,
system?
Dr. Kim.
That was. And
And that's a mental health issue. That's a place of survival, which means that we're living under direct oppression, and we're living under direct. We're basically living on a concentration camp because we don't return these things. It's not our. When we say systematic racism, that's not coming from us. That's coming from the outside
That's right.
in.
That's right, Dr. Kim.
So we have to be very clear that we're always under attack. If it's not a two-way edge, that means that we're constantly under attack. And then we have to deal with that for what that is. Because what country deliberately attacks its own citizens? That's why we have to correct. That's why we have a
I don't
duty.
think we citizens. I really don't.
No.
I don't feel
Yeah.
like a citizen.
Well, you're not a citizen because they let you off the plantation.
Right.
Just letting you off the plantation was what they were supposed to do because they were never supposed to have you in the first place.
right.
This was not about us. This was about them. They let us go because they lost the war. But had they not lost the war, we were still back on the plantation. Again, this is not, they didn't let us off. They lost the war. And immediately afterwards, they started creating laws to put us back on the
right.
plantation.
That's right.
So
well, that's because the war wasn't really about, the
Letting us go
letting
in the
slaves
first-
in the first place, right?
right now, mind you, and then two things. They let when they released us because they had to. You had Galveston, Texas, who held on to us an additional 2 years. So, but they had to strong arm them to let us go. They had to send the federal government in to get us. Now, and Harriet told them, "Excuse me, I was never your slave." Not only did I leave, I came back to get more and free more. So we were never, quote unquote, slaves to them. We were kidnapped. And if that be the case, then they should be held on crimes against humanity. This is the because to this day they still have not let us go. Now they don't hold us in. Some of our men they got on plantations, but and for the most part, but at the end of the day, we could have walked off ourselves. Harriet did it. The issue is, did we want to suffer the consequences that came with the war crimes? Because the only thing that you could have did to me was something physical. We didn't want to suffer the physical abuse. And she broke the law because she bore arms. Slaves were not supposed to bear arms, but she would have blew master back and his side pieces. She would have blew him away. Why? Because she understood she was in a war.
Yeah.
She wasn't in a slave war. She was in a war to be free from kidnappers. We have to really change our mind as they give us these narratives, and then we forget to know thyself.
That's right.
And then we operate under what premise
That's
or
right. There you go,
definition
Dr. Kim.
they give.
Right.
I was never your slave. I could have walked off myself. You let me go was more because you had to, not because you wanted to.
And I think something else Harriet understood was, if you say that I'm not a citizen, I'm a slave, I'm not a citizen, then I don't have to follow your law anyway. So I'm gonna bear arms and I'm gonna blow your back out if you come in here.
Right.
But
if we were citizens, then you owe me. Because now citizenship says that you defrauded me of my labor and the economic status to go along with it. I was never a slave. And I think black people, and see, here's the other thing, because I heard Brother Kevin some months ago say we were never their slaves. That could not be more importantly said. Why? Because if I was never their slave, and I was someone they kidnapped to till their land, then you have a duty to pay me back. Whether I was your citizen or not, I just perform labor. Labor alone says you owe me. Whether you enslaved me or you didn't, you owed me. So I think the enslaved or the slavery terms sort of helps provide this pacifist kind of emotional aspect to the storyline. I have slaves, the antebellum. And here we are. We all a part of this here fabric of America.
Right.
But no, I'm not even your American. Because if I'm an American, then who is the Indian? If they predate America coming,
Right.
then who is the Indian? But they're Indian American? How can they be an Indian American and they was here before America?
Right.
they call them Native Americans.
Right, they call them, they predate you 50,000 years now about.
Definitely.
So how we gotta wake up and use our own intellect. Because they could tell us we a frog. They could tell us we 3/5 of a man. They could make us 2/5, a half, a whole. Some of this stuff is ridiculous. I can't even believe we repeat this stuff and look at it in the history books. But getting back to brother who's hanging from somebody's tree downtown city of Raleigh, we're gonna have to demand real change on this one. And I know we're not just really talking about a hanging. We're talking about a system of hate. And whether they solve the issue or not, it's our job to solve it.
And we definitely want to get back to that, brother. But I want to state this also. If it's a system, institutional, systemic, the system don't. Brothers always try to keep me informed that the system do not work without racism.
Right.
So this is part of the reason why they do not. Or they did not vote for it being one of the gravest crimes in humanity, and how it go, because then they would have to admit the racism, and then the system is not going to be able to work or fluctuate without the racism. But back to
They would have to pay us too.
Yeah. That's
Right.
another thing.
Right.
Because once you determine that you kidnap people and put them on the forced labor, and the transatlantic slave trade was the manner in which you did it, now you have to pay. See, that's the part. And they don't think that we're worthy of payment.
Right.
So what they'll do is they'll, instead of giving us what we're worth, They'll give us affordable housing. They'll give us subsidized living. They'll give us food stamps and stuff that keep us begging at master's
Oh yeah.
table. But they'll never give us something that makes us independent, which is what you took from us from the beginning. Nobody asked you for food stamps. Nobody asked you for subsidized housing or affordable housing. All of these terms you made up yourself, America. We didn't even ask you for DEI. When DEI came out in, droves, that was right after George Floyd. Everybody wanted to make sure that corporations included us and all of these things. We never asked for you to leave us alone so we can be independent and strong.
I still don't understand the DEI. But yeah, the brother from yesterday that was found roped up in the tree yesterday, his name hasn't been revealed. So how can his family, or how I don't, and how do they get do they even know who it? Now I guess they don't know who it is if his name ain't been revealed. So let me get back to the way the imagery is. So it's like it's something they're showing. They want us to see something here, right? They paint the image, right, Brother Ausar? So
That's good.
brother, does this such imagery informs the public, or simply reproduce that spectacle that they showing? Like what type of imagery are they trying to put out there, or portray for the world, for this country to see? Understand?
I like that
from
question.
from both
That's good.
standpoints, black and
Right. Well, the imagery I want to talk about is the imagery that one of my friends had sent me that they had pulled up. Of some people around a brother with a noose around his neck. They want that image out there, right? And it's very disrespectful to the man and his family, right? Because why would you show something so horrific as far as imagery? It's to affect us in a negative way psychologically and to instill fear, right? And it's a message from the Ku Klux Klan and other white supremacists. You have to understand that they hold key positions and high positions throughout government,
Right.
throughout media,
Right.
throughout the news agencies, right? Because, to me, and then not to even reveal who the person was, why? The motive is you want to ask the motive, why would you put something out there like that for people to see? You know how painful that'll be for family members, whether he has children, parents, brothers and sisters, cousins, friends, right? They could care less about, how we see things. And we have to really look at that and take that into account, right? Because it's a strategic war that's played on our mindset, that's been played, since they, first started invading Africa. And that's why, I had said what I had said about, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressed is the mind of the oppressed, because they know if they can control the mind, if they can control your thoughts, they can control your actions, right? And that's why, it's important for us to open up our ears, our minds, and our hearts, to the teachings of our ancestors and our great, scholars, revolutionaries, teachers, community leaders, community organizers, concerned citizens. Listen to our children, so that we can work together and so we can stop this, because they're not going to stop on their own
That's true.
from doing the things that they are doing, because and that's why they want to keep us confused and asking us about, well, let's focus on the evidence, and things like that, where we have evidence that somebody died yesterday hanging in a tree. That's evidence in itself.
No, we have 400 years of evidence.
And, Dr. Kill.
And enough evidence to make us say, slow this process down.
Right.
We need we just don't need RPD at the table. We need a bunch of people at the table to investigate this from various areas and from various avenues. And we should not close, consider, or anything until the black community is safely aware that this would have been, hopefully, something. I mean, because I don't think people want a lynching. We don't need a reason for a lynching. Black people would have preferred this young man to be saved or something, but we
Right.
don't need a lynching. That's not what we're asking for. We are asking for transparency so that we can get to the root of these issues. And God forbid if it was a lynching, what do we do from there? Because we've had many cases. We know what that means. So are we still going to go with the same system that keeps lynching us? That's not systematic racism. Now you stupid. Because it's one thing for you to be ignorant and don't know. It's another thing that when you know, you keep going in the same direction. So then that is incumbent upon us as leaders. What are we going to do? Because we are like, and again, I think I'll go back, and there is a wonderful scripture that talks about that the children are an inheritance of the Lord, and that we are a quiver in his bow. Well, a quiver, I used to teach this, is that a quiver and a bow was a form that God gave us as a form of executing in the earth a purpose and a plan. Each one of us are given to this earth for a purpose and a plan. So we are direct, we're precise. And I can tell you that each and every black person on this planet should never ever be subject to another race, because that is not that is not our purpose. And anytime we are living in this earth where we feel like we have to be second class to the earth, who is you? We are not subject to no man's mental health. So if this person did lose his mind at any time and had his mind, I can promise you it's from the pressures of this country. And that is an indictment on America by itself, with or without the rope. Because that means every black person on this planet is subject to the same likes of this man.
That's right.
Whether they hang themselves with a rope or smoke drugs or whatever, if the pressures of this society broke this brother, then everybody is indicted on this issue. And I am, and that's with or without RPD.
I agree with that. Also, because you could take it back to how we always talking about the psychotropic drugs, they start putting our kids on at an early age.
Come on.
We got to start doing, it got to be different categories with mental health and mental illness, because
who is causing them? Because certain things we didn't kill ourselves when you sold our kids down to slavery and couldn't find your kids no more. If we didn't break with a rope off of that, what we breaking off of this today?
Exactly. So they pumping these
that's a narrative. They taking the narrative and they adding their drug or potence to it. So we are under psychological warfare and biochemical warfare.
That's right.
Because this stuff we didn't make up. We are more hardy than that. Right. Matter of fact, they said we was more hardy. Even when we want more hardy, that we could take more pain, and they won't give us pain medication. Dr. Simmons was the one who created, who would do body work on black females without anesthesia. Come on, they always said that we could take more pain. So now we can't. Which one is it? So when it fits the narrative, they won't give us any pain medication and let us die on the table. Not because we weren't hardy, but you didn't have no compassion. So which one is it? Now this man hanging from a tree, and you gonna tell me he committed suicide? Can we take pain or can we not?
Yeah, and if he strung himself up, like you were saying, it goes back way before then.
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
Because
he didn't.
He probably didn't. But all the people that they saying, it goes way before that, because what's the the medical
exam. Yeah, they corrupt. All of them are corrupt.
The document though that we was talking about, I can't even think of it right now. The medical
examiner, the autopsy.
No. I'm talking about the mental.
The psychological association, the ones who created that, they were apologizing. We did a whole
that's
run
the
on
APA,
what's that,
that's
brother?
the APA apology.
Right.
You got the NSM 41, but it was also that other document that not the memorandum
46.
No, I can't even remember right now. But they had just did a new chapter or edition or something that we have spoke on it before.
Okay.
But I just I'm sorry, I can't even remember right now. So let me go to this then, Dr. Kim.
Yes.
Do we sometimes need an external villain before we consider a black person's death worthy of serious community attention?
Unfortunately, yes. That's where we are mentally. We need a reason to fight. We need a well, and so here's the thing. They've taught us that you cannot fight just because you need to fight. You have to prove that we're bad first, and then you can come and fight. You can come and make an argument. You have to catch us in the act. It's almost like you can't accuse them until you catch them. And so that in itself is a form of white supremacy that tells you when you can and cannot fight. You can only fight when we've showed you our whole hand, even if we knew all along. I think about the moms. Shout out to the mothers of the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s
Yeah.
who lost their children to lynching and still had to return to work as domestics. I think about them having to work for rich white people who they knew were a part of these lynchings. And even if they were not out there with the rope in their hand, they certainly were a part of it because they were your political leaders. I remember when if you all watched Mississippi Burning, and how many of the politicians went down with the sheriff and went down with various people. It wasn't just the folks that shot them, but it was the entire system. And we're talking about the entire system. So how many of our black women knew that some of the people they worked for were a part of their sons' lynchings, but they still had to return to work and work for them? This is right. Whether they had the rope in their hand or the sheet in the closet, it didn't matter. They knew that they were all, the entire county or the city was a part of the larger issue. And so, yes, you're right. Most of the times blacks don't fight until they have, and even to then they don't fight sometimes.
Yeah. Brother Ausar, you want to get in, add in on that?
No, you can go on to the next one.
Okay, well, let's go. First of all, I want to go over what justice, their definition or how they see injustice. Justice at this stage does not mean deciding what happened before investigators establish it. Justice means demanding transparency. We should want a thorough investigation, a complete medical examiner review, preservation and review of available surveillance footage, witness interviews, a reliable timeline, appropriate communication with the family, clear public information when the investigation permits it, and if the evidence supports suicide, then say so. If the evidence points somewhere else, then follow it wherever it leads. So, but Brother Ausar, what would you think justice should look like?
Well, for them to stop murdering black people, that's going to be the only justice, and for us to put protection on ourselves. And I feel like us protecting ourselves is going to stop them, right? Because you can't expect justice from the courts. That's been proven, throughout the years in the legal system, Department of Justice. They had United Against Hate. And what was it, 2023?
Oh, Jesus.
Right, and I got to give a shout out and credit, to Dr. Kim, because Dr. Kim has been speaking on this subject matter, lynchings, for years, and I even went to an event that she had, and even last September on this show, Africans United.
That's right.
We did a whole segment, on lynchings, right? And so it's very important. And here it is today, 11 months later, and we're talking about it, again. So we really have to, be serious and understand that, and I want to quote what Bob Marley said. I said it before on this show. You can't expect justice in a world where the criminals make the law. Right? So we can't look at justice from United States legal perspective.
That's right.
Right? Our justice has to be where we feel, that things are going in the direction that we needed to go in, so the things that have happened to us over the last 1,000, 2,000 years stop happening.
That's true.
The lynching of innocent black people, right? The lynching of our minds in the school system, right? The way they the infant mortality amongst all the, and this is what Dr. Kim discussed. All these are forms of lynching,
It's all
right?
Come on, brother.
And then they hang us. So we as a people have to understand that if even if someone is found of a crime with this brother's hanging, we still can't see that, okay, oh, that's justice. Because you look what happened to the officer that killed George Floyd. He got locked up. Well, we say we got justice for George Floyd. George Floyd is still dead, right?
And many other George Floyds after him
Indeed.
are dead. So we didn't solve the issue. We removed the man, but we never dismantled the system. And we only removed the man because he was caught.
Right, that's right.
Had he not been on public view in front of everybody, he would have never gone to jail because they would have explained away his actions. And what you can't see, you can't give an account of. And that is the problem.
That's right.
So, and at the end of the day, we have to remember the video that we watched did not come from the police department. It came from a 17-year-old girl who filmed it as it was happening.
Right.
No one had to petition for that video to be released. No one had to wait for the courts to decide whether, no delay, no interference by the government. This was just live and direct. Why? Because it came for us, by us.
And so there's really no justice when our brothers and sisters are being targeted, murdered all over the world, globally. Not only in the diaspora, but also, on the continent by, foreign invaders, right? So I think that we had to think deeper than justice. I think we got to think liberation and power.
That is
because
correct.
we're going to have to, in order for us to get justice, we're going to have to take out justice.
And we're going to have to redefine who we are.
Indeed,
Because
yes.
we cannot wait on them to define us where it is most beneficial for them, because they change up and they'll say they're a Christian and rape everybody at the same time. So we can't depend on their definition because it only serves them their purpose at the time.
Yeah. Great. Good job. Great job. And DSM-5, I think it was, that I was thinking about.
The
Does
DSM-5.
that sound about right?
Yeah, that's the manual that they use, the diagnostic statistical manual 5 that they use to determine whether somebody has some type of mental health illness.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, then we all do, living in America,
Right.
especially with the oppression that we're undergoing. And there again, after they beat you to death, then they go, "Oh, you guys are very resilient." So when you say that, you never get a chance to say, "Well, I'm suffering mentally from what you did." No, because they gave you a badge of honor. Getting a beating is a badge of honor now. You're resilient. You bounce back. Look how strong they are. Well, yeah, you might not see the bruises, but we have internal bruising from these blunt force traumas that have been given generational, decades, and centuries being in this country.
Yes, indeed.
So I would like to hear who this man was, and not just this one day event. I want to see who he really was, and I think we owe it to this brother in his life. Peace out to the brother who was found hanging. May we recuperate and levitate and elevate above this chaos.
That's right.
Yes, and I want to reiterate this also, that it was during the Caribbean Festival in the middle of downtown area. I think it was at the corner of McDowell and Salisbury Street, in the middle of downtown of the capital city of North Carolina.
Which tells you our celebrations can be superficial too.
Very superficial.
Like, what are we celebrating if our brother is hanging next door?
Get him, Dr.
Right.
Kim. That's right.
What are we really celebrating if our brother's hanging on the next street over?
That was done intentionally.
Come on.
That's exactly what they. Exactly. Yeah. Right.
No coincidence.
Right. During y'all celebration.
Right.
No
Right
coincidence.
now. Yeah. Any final thoughts y'all like to leave?
Yeah. Well, our plans were to do hip hop and rap and how it affects out the black community, part 2 today.
Yes.
But, you know, with what happened yesterday with them finding the brother hanging, I want to give a big shout out, you know, to the KCSSU team, my
Yes.
brother Dwayne Bobby for helping, you know, to find this information early this morning.
Thank you.
And of course, you know, Linda Darton and the incredible, she worked, you know, the work she does in gathering research and, you know, helping to put the format together, the question. And of course, you know, you, Dr. Kim, and you, Brother Escents, you know, always being prepared, you know, so that we can deliver, you know, the message and educate our brothers and sisters on these important issues as we fight for liberation and power globally.
Absolutely. And I think what we should be doing right now is we should, if the children ain't riding, the other folks should be at least we should be doing a press conference. So I'll probably need to put that together so we can stand strong for this young brother.
Yes. Remember, proper education always corrects error. Peace.
Peace. Awesome job, y'all.
Ooh,
Well, y'all, boy,
that's fine.
we fire. Without
That's
that, what you
right.
think, brother?
Oak 93.5 is a low-power FM service brought to you by Triangle Access Broadcasting, a non-profit corporation, WRLY-LP, Raleigh.
Brought to you by Triangle Access Broadcasting. Here's a look at the weather in the Oak 93.